fortunate to have Dr. Jeff Andersen join us, state climatologist, and Jeff gives us very meaningful updates and forecasts. So Jeff, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thanks very much, Mike, and thanks, Dennis. And to follow up on some of Dennis's comments, spot on. We are while it's a fairly gloomy, another gloomy day here across much of Michigan. There are definitely changes coming here, and not too far out, and we will be looking at warmer than normal weather here before too long, especially next week. And so some of what Dennis has mentioned and Christy mentioned earlier, I think is definitely applicable here. So we start to look at some days with averages of above 50. That's definitely in the cards here, especially next week. And I'll get to that in just a moment here. But looking at our week in review, it's been for most of the state on the left-hand side here, a cooler than normal week, and that doesn't come as a surprise with the upper air that we've had across. And right now we've got a situation where the upper air hasn't changed much over the last 2 or 3 days, but the upshot is we're on the last day of it, the last 24 hours of the current pattern we're in, and then we're going to move to something different, certainly milder and probably drier than it has been, at least in the recent past. But our departures for the last week here generally ranging from 1 or 2 degrees to as much as 4 degrees below normal for the time of the year. And that is, as Dennis mentioned, it's slowed things down a great deal from where we were earlier. I'll show you some degree day accumulations here in just a second. It was also another pretty active weather week with a storm track through the Ohio Valley. Fortunately, we missed a lot of the severe weather that did occur with a couple of these weather systems that stayed to our south, but we did have significant precip over many parts of the state, but it depended on where you were. Our totals for the week here ranging from less than ½ an inch over eastern and southeastern portions of lower Michigan to more than 2 inches along the Indiana state line and up in portions of upper Michigan. So it has been a fairly wet week in some parts of the state, especially as you go north and west in the state. Our degree day totals here are, well, they're of course, they're the highest down in the southwestern portion of lower Michigan and decrease as you go northward. But these are base 50 totals beginning at starting accumulation at the beginning of March here through the 3rd. And you can see, again, totals ranging from less than 20 across the far north to more than 70 down in the far south. Again, the southwest is where we've had the most heat accumulation, and probably, again, following up on some of Dennis's comments, we had such an early start with degree day accumulation, even including February, which doesn't happen that often in Michigan, but we did this year. But given the recent cooler than normal weather over the last couple of weeks, we're still ahead of normal. 1, maybe 2 calendar weeks ahead of normal, but it's not nearly as much as what we were just 3 or 4 weeks ago. So the amount of the surplus of degree days right now, we still have a surplus, but it's not nearly as much. We're closer to the pack where climatology says we should be for this time of the year, but still somewhat ahead. And this is following up. We had a couple questions last week with Ian McDonald and our speaker from Guelph, and looking at a very, very well and record-breaking mild winter, and a lot of talk about soil tilth and freeze-thaw cycles. And I just wanted to throw this up. This is our EnviroWeather site at East Lansing here, one of them, and looking at 2-inch soil temperatures going back to last fall, to the beginning of November. This goes through the end of February. But what's interesting to note here, and there's quite a bit, it's a little bit of and I've got both the sort of the climatology, the long-term normals are the thicker lines in the back. And these are each, both of these groups, there's 2 groups on here. One is the climatology, the averages for the last 25 years. And that's in the sort of the light red, the black, and then the blue. So maximum, mean, and minimum temperatures by day, 2 inches in the soil. And then the observed temperatures for last fall and this fall are the other group here with the brown, gray, and dark blue. That's what we actually saw here. And what's pretty remarkable is that we only had one, actually a day or two here where the 2-inch soil temperature actually got down to freezing. And that occurred right at the end of that Arctic outbreak during January. But also note that there were several periods here, especially during December and then around between Christmas and New Year and early January, where we were way above, including some 40-degree temperatures, which are very, very unusual, as you can see, relative to normal. And then another period here in February, late February, and or for much of the month of February, where we were abnormally warm with soil temperatures as well. Remember that, and if you're wondering, that soil temperatures are a little difficult. They don't always mirror air temperatures because snow cover plays a major role in insulation here, and that was definitely the case around day 15 here. That's the middle of January. And snow is an incredible insulator, and it's actually really important for preventing cold damage to overwintering wheat and getting those temperatures down to damaging levels. Snow is just a fantastic insulator, and if it's on there, it keeps that temperature really close, or maybe even a little bit above freezing. But this year we had a mostly open winter with much less than normal snow cover. But just to give you an idea here, there were very few freeze thaw cycles in our soil. And of course, this is at East Lansing. It varied as you went around the state, but this is, I think, fairly representative of what we have seen from our EnviroWeather Network values around the state. Unusually mild air temperatures and unusually mild soil temperatures this year as well. So not much of the freeze and thaw. In terms of moisture here, I would note that we do have some dryness, especially across northern parts of the state, that we're watching. It's a time of the year where it's not as certainly as important in the bigger picture things, but it includes some D2 severe drought in western portions of upper Michigan and quite a bit of moderate drought, D1, as you can see across other portions of upper Michigan, and then some abnormally dry conditions even extending down into lower Michigan. But that said, we have been in an active weather pattern. There has been quite a bit of precipitation in especially northern parts of the state, and some of you probably know that includes some very heavy snow that we've had over the last 1 to 2 days, especially in central upper Michigan, in some cases almost 2 feet of snow, along with very strong winds and blizzard conditions and things we would rather not see for early April, but it is a reminder of late winter. But the bottom line here long term is that will provide some really good moisture for I think reversing some of this, or at least getting some moisture in the ground. Snow is always a great way of getting water back in a controlled rate, and we definitely had that in the northern part of the state. So some dryness still there, but less than we have over the last couple of weeks. Well, looking ahead here in the forecast, we'll start with our weather map here this morning. The weather system that brought all the inclement and unsettled weather conditions, including the heavy snow for the north. Currently, it's just over the southeastern corner of lower Michigan here this morning. It's very slowly moving off to the east. It finally will today after being with us almost 3 days, but there will be continuing scattered showers across the state. They will be in the solid form in most areas here, snow or snow rain mix during the morning, probably warm up enough in the afternoon that some more rainfall, but still right around that transition line where we with our air temperatures, where we have maybe a mix of both or go to rain. But all of the precipitation will gradually come to an end by tomorrow morning. And here's the map for tomorrow morning. And you can see the low pressure moving off finally to the east. It's been with us a while, and then high pressure moving in from the north. That is a Canadian origin high pressure system. It's not particularly really cold, but it's certainly seasonably cold for this time of the year. The other theme here that's important to note: today will be the coldest day of the upcoming week. High temperatures only ranging from the mid or upper 30s in the far north to around 40 or low 40s in the south. But we will see noticeable warming tomorrow and more beyond that into the weekend, and then continuing on into next week. So after a really cold, cloudy, and breezy day today, tomorrow will be drier, warmer by several degrees, and we should see high temperatures in many parts of the state by this weekend back above 50 degrees, and our lows increase. We will see some freezing temperatures, by the way, this weekend. It would be warmer during the day, but it's also going to be upper 20s, low 30s at night through probably Sunday morning. But then after that, again, significant more warming, and we will see high temperatures probably by Monday, back up to 60, and maybe even some pushing 70 by the middle of next week for maximum temperatures. And min temperatures going back up into the 40s. So those average temperatures that Dennis talked about, we will be above 50 for averages once again by next week. Also, in terms of precipitation, watching here after today, when's the next chance for precip? Well, it's going to be dry probably for the next few days, but the next weather system, this is Saturday morning weather map. You can see a weather system out over the high plains that's making its way here. The long and the short of that, though, is it's going to be weakening by the time it gets here. And so we will see some increasing clouds late Sunday and probably a chance for some showers once again, mainly overnight Sunday into Monday morning. Not a big deal, though, probably looking at a few hundredths or certainly less than a quarter of an inch in most areas where it does occur. And then drier weather moves in for most of Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. So the next chance for anything significant probably not coming until the middle of next week in terms of precipitation. For those of you who are thinking about checking out the eclipse coming up on Monday, sorry, the 8th, note that much of Michigan was going to see more than 90% coverage. Should be pretty well. It could be potentially pretty interesting. Of course, the weather cooperates with clouds or not. We do have that weather system I just mentioned here. That's down in the lower left, and the issue is the timing of that. And there will be clouds with that, maybe some precipitation again overnight on Sunday into Monday. The maximum coverage of the sun for most of Michigan, especially southeastern lower Michigan, is going to be that afternoon between roughly 2 and 3:30 p.m. in the afternoon. So right sort of in the middle of the afternoon, it should be very, very visible. Even with clouds, it's going to darken up. And in some cases, we'll be getting close to, we don't have quite 100% coverage. That's just off to our south and east, as you can see the path here, but it's not far away and it will be really, really noticeable. The question is, will there be a few enough clouds here to see anything? And the answer is, well, maybe. This is on the right-hand side here. This is a cloud forecast for 2 p.m. on Monday afternoon. And right now, at least the forecast is saying there's still going to be lingering clouds from that weather system, but less as you go to the south. We will see, I mentioned that warmer air coming in and warmer and drier air. We should see fewer clouds as one goes south. So maybe with any luck here, the system speeds up a little bit and we do get some breaks in the clouds to see something or see part of this eclipse for Monday. So that's the current thinking right now. Keep an eye on the forecast, though, because it could change between now and then. That's still a few days out. And again, the timing of this could change. So still, it isn't a loss or some. I'm still optimistic or hopeful that we will be able to see at least something here in Michigan for that on Monday. Precipitation totals here for the upcoming week, generally lighter than normal. And they, especially for the northern part of the state, increasing as you go south. Most of what you see here, which is generally less than half an inch, quarter to half an inch at the most, it occurs down in the far south. Some of that, a little bit of it would be today, a few hundredths of an inch, maybe a tenth, and then the middle of next week. So again, not looking at as much precip as what we've had over the last couple of weeks, especially across northern parts of the state. Now, moving into the medium range, and I think this is important, one of the take-home messages here. We are looking at some jet stream changes here upcoming in the week. I mentioned a warm trend towards warmer. That's the big message, I think, in this. But the other thing to note here on the left-hand side, our jet stream is generally further north than it typically is this time of the year. And we've seen that so frequently during the past winter, and it strongly points at, again, warmer than normal temperatures. On the upper right, you can see that, again, clearly for much of the northern half of the continental U.S., warmer than normal weather is indicated. And also still an active storm track through the Ohio Valley, it turns out, the Midwest and the Ohio Valley, that should lead to normal to above normal precipitation totals, at least for part of the end of next week. So at least a couple of weather systems coming. sunshine. In this time of the year, always be severe weather is always a possibility, as we have seen, and this jet stream pattern is conducive for that, so something to keep an eye on. But it is fairly active, at least initially. And I put the 8 to 14 day because while it also still calls for warmer than normal mean temperatures, and that's the major theme here. Note that there is some movement of the major features, the troughs and ridges in the upper air, and it leads to that ridge out over the western portion of the country getting a little closer, and that means ultimately we probably would see some reduction in our rainfall. And so collectively here, it is looking like, I think, pointing towards some really some opportunities coming up here for field work in the next 1 to 2 weeks, especially with the higher temperatures, higher evaporation rates, et cetera. We should start to see some possibilities or some opportunities out there as the weather unfolds. And so, one last thing here too, I put in the new modified or the new outlook for the month of April. That's on the top. It is consistent with what you just saw, and it calls for April to average out overall warmer than normal. And you can see on the upper right-hand side here, precip totals normal to maybe a little bit above normal in the south. We'll see on that. Again, the message, my take home would be more on the temperatures, and we are looking fairly high confidence of going back above normal here for some time. And with that, I'll wrap up here again with that message of looking at warmer weather in the not too distant future here. Be ready to go, I think, is the lesson here we see in the outlooks. And actually, it goes beyond the outlook for the warmer temperatures goes beyond April into much of the rest of the spring and even into the early summer as well. And with that, I will wrap up and introduce our speaker for next week. Coming up on the 11th of April is Dr. Kurt Steinke. And he's going to be with us at this time of the year. He usually does spend time here on the virtual breakfast series and going to be talking about soil fertility. And so with that, I'll turn it back over to Phil to talk about our UP credits.